ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं लोकशङ्करं। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। So we saw here yesterday that in the next section, Miseries of the Unspiritual Man, Shankaracharya ji says that one who has got human birth, humane qualities, one who has cultivated humane qualities, has studied the scriptures, who has also got certain knowledge of the Shastra, who is successful, if that person doesn't strive to realize the truth, then that person is committing suicide. Atmaha. Why? Because one is holding on to asad grahat. Why? One is asad basically. Grahat means to hold on. So one is holding on to that which is asat, which is unreal. So if we postpone spiritual life, generally our mind tends to make it as a post-retirement plan. Shankaracharya ji says here, no, having got human birth, human qualities, knowledge of the scriptures, one must strive for liberation. The purpose of scriptural knowledge is to strive for liberation. Make us feel the need, understand the bondage, and then come out of it. So he went on then he's to say that Ita konvasti mudhatma yastu swarthe pramadyati. Who is the deluded fool who will postpone one's own well-being? So the word swartha is in Sanskrit, if we split it up, it is swasya artha, means one's own well-being. We translate it as selfishness. If my own well-being alone is in my thinking, then that is selfishness. But if I understand swartha truly, swasya artha, my own well-being, and how will my own well-being happen unless the well-being of the society doesn't happen? So for my own well-being, I serve the society around, and I also try to get out of this shackles of attachment, bondage that I am right now in. So he says here, the person who is not striving for that, such a deluded person, having got the human body and paurusham, if a person is not doing, one is wasting this opportunity. Then he goes on to say the importance of finding out the root cause of sorrow. So vadantu shastrani bhajantu devataha. Vadantu shastrani refers to the karma yoga aspect. Jnana yoga aspect. Vadantu shastrani. Bhajantu devataha is the bhakti yoga aspect. Kurvantu karmani is the karma yoga aspect. Meaning all the three yogas. Bhajantu devataha, yajantu devan, these are all the bhakti yoga aspect. So karma yoga, jnana yoga and bhakti yoga, all the three aspects. He says one may do this for many lives together. Atmaikya bodhena vina vimuktihi. Without the knowledge of the oneness of Jiva and Brahma, Atma and the Supreme Consciousness, Paramatma. Unless we don't realize that oneness, he says, Vina vimuktihi nasiddhyati brahma shatantarepi. Even in 100 lives of Brahmaji, one will not get mukti. So what does this mean? Does this mean that all these practices should not be done at all? They are a waste of time? No. So there is a secondary cause and there is a primary cause for bondage. If I treat only the secondary cause or the effects, then the root cause is not eliminated, the primary cause is not eliminated. Then the bondage keeps coming back, but in different forms. So for example, in Bhaj Govindam, he says that, Shankaracharya ji says, Balastavat krida saktah, tarunastavat taruni saktah, vriddhastavat chinta saktah, parame brahmani kopina saktah. So in childhood, we are attached to the toys. In the youth, we are attached to the toys. We are attached to the pleasures of the youth. In old age, we are attached to worrying. Now, if I feel that the toys are the cause of my bondage, some relationship is the cause of my bondage, some external factor is the cause of my bondage, my duty, my work. Now, these are all only, they are not the cause of bondage. They are external to me. Suppose I say, no, these are not the cause of my bondage, but these are, the attachment to these is the cause of my bondage. Now, attachment also is a secondary cause. So one may change the object of attachment, but the tendency to be attached is not gone. Why? Because the basic cause of attachment, the root cause of my bondage, that is not gone. So even if I practice Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, till I don't identify what is the root cause and find out what is the solution for it, mukti will not happen. So to understand this root cause, we have to see a few things here. I'm going to share the screen so that you will understand, you will be able to see this clearly. So actions when we do, they are caused by our thoughts. Thoughts are created by our desires. And desires are based on our tendencies. So for every result that I want in this world, I have to do certain actions. Those actions are manifestations of sustained thought. When I sustain a thought, like simple example, you sustain a thought that morning 7 o'clock this week I have to attend Vivek Chudamani. Now if the thought is sustained, it will manifest into action. You will get up early morning, get ready, put on your computers, action. Now the thought is created by what? It's created by desires. So what are these desires? One desire can create many thoughts, which can create many actions, many karma phalas, many results. So what is actually a desire? Gurudev used to say that desire is a scheme for happiness in the future. I don't feel I am happy right now. When I fulfill this desire, when I go here, when I become this, when I get that, then I will be happy. So the scheme for fulfillment in future is a desire. I may be happy right now in the sense I'm enjoying some temporary pleasure. I want more. So it need not be only out of unhappiness. It can be out of that sense of enjoyment also. Either ways, it is a desire is a scheme for happiness in the future. Now, why will we feel like that? That I should be happy in future? Because desire, the second definition of desire is it is a sense of incompleteness. When there is a certain incompleteness in me, then the desire arises. When a person has eaten to the brim, completely full, there is no more space to put anything inside. There is no desire for any more food. Even if the best favorite food is brought to that person, For that moment, there is no desire because the person is full. So in the same way, when our heart is full of love, full of happiness, peace, there is no desire. Or when there is no identification with the body, mind, intellect, there is no desire. Like in the state of deep sleep. So a desire is a sense of incompleteness. Many places we will see that desire is the root cause of evil. So that is said for a common man to understand that be aware of desires, be alert, don't get carried away by the impulse of desire. But desire is not the root cause. Attachment to those desires and the insistence on a particular result, insistence on a particular way of action, that is also not the root cause. That is an expression of desire. So then what is the root cause? Why do some people desire in certain things, and why do some people don't desire certain things? So we come to the vasana, the tendency. These tendencies in us make us desire certain things. So we like certain things, the same things after some time we may not like because we have exhausted that tendency. Or the same thing after some time we are more in attachment with because the tendency has become stronger. So the tendencies, the vasanas in us make us desire, desires create thoughts, thoughts create action, action gives us result, and these results are not only at the external level, whatever result we get, but internally a tendency is created. Whether I like it or I don't like it, either ways a tendency is got created. So the desire creates further tendencies which create further desires. This cycle goes on. Most of the time we are not even aware of this cycle. That there is a vasana, there is an impression that is created in my mind. Suppose I drink coffee for the first time. I haven't tasted it. Somebody told me that, okay, coffee of this particular place is very, very good. Now the desire has started that I must have that coffee. And now when I'm drinking that coffee, I put efforts, I've gone with some friends and I'm drinking that coffee. What happens? If I like that coffee, the equation in the mind, the impression in the mind is I plus coffee is equal to happiness. Now that impression has got created. The more I strengthen this, I go there again and again and again and I keep drinking that. Now that has become a strong vasana. So an impression is called as a samskar. Strengthened impressions which create a particular pattern, a thought channel, that is called as a vasana. Then the mind flows in that direction effortlessly. 5 mornings you get up early at 7 o'clock, you are attending the class. On the 6th day morning, again the body will get up, same time, because the pattern has got created now. So like that, a tendency gets created in us that makes us desire, which gives this whole cycle, which again strengthens a tendency. Now this cycle, our vasana is our cause of bondage. Somebody thinks like that. See, all of these can be the causes of bondage at different levels. There is no doubt. Attachment to result is a cause of bondage, because when I insist that I must get this particular result, then I am bound. I will be disturbed, I will be agitated. So many people can't handle that failure. It's just that they didn't get a particular result. So their desires, dreams, aspirations, they get crushed. And sometimes one doesn't even realize that, life is so much more. There's so much more can be done. It's an opportunity which I can explore. One comes into some kind of a thinking, difficult situation, then one gets into drugs, depression, even suicide. So result also can be the cause of bondage. Attachment to the result. By itself, result is not a cause of bondage. The attachment to that result is a cause of bondage. Attachment to action, again cause of bondage. Particular way only something has to happen. Do it my way or hit the highway. So many people can't work together in a team. They will do it only their way. Whether it's in a family, in a corporate situation, or even in a spiritual organization, anywhere. It has to be done my way. So then attachment to action, that is also cause of bondage. Attachment to certain way of thinking as a thought pattern that mind has created. And the mind continuously flows in that direction. A negative thought pattern or a positive thought pattern, the mind creates that, one after the other. Psychologists say that 55% of our thoughts are what we carry forward from yesterday. Just imagine the same thought patterns of what I had been thinking yesterday. I'm just carrying it forward today. Psychological thought patterns, I mean. How the mind just goes in a rut. How strange it would be, that if we carry along with us in a bag some vegetables, let us say potatoes, tomatoes, and every day we carry it with us. What will happen after 2-3 days? They will start rotting. Slowly, they will be stinking. An unbearable stink will come. Will we still carry it? In that example, the experiment is very simple. One will just drop it in a dustbin. One will not carry it. But in our mind, that is what is happening. One is carrying the repeated patterns of thoughts, hurts, memories, pleasurable experiences. One is repeatedly carrying those, reliving those again and again. And that creates raga and dvesha. So attachment to certain thoughts, certain memories, certain feelings, certain expressions, words. This person said like this to me. I feel hurt by that. I feel bound by that. So attachment to result, attachment to action, attachment to thoughts, attachment to desires. So one feels that these are the cause of bondage. Desires are the cause of my bondage. If no desire is there, then there will be no problem. Then comes tendencies. My vasana is the cause of my bondage. Why? Because vasana is creating these desires. These vasanas are unmanifest. Only when they manifest as desire will I even know that these kind of vasanas are there in my personality. They are called the causal body. So they are the cause of my desires and my actions. So we feel that, okay, my vasanas are the cause of my problem. Here it is, Vedanta says ki no, one has to still think deeper. No doubt vasanas are causes of desires. But why is the desire arising in the first place is not just because of a vasana. When a vasana is arising, it is arising because, as we said, there is an identification with something which is incomplete. So identification with the body, mind, intellect makes us feel incomplete. And when I feel incomplete, to become complete, there are certain tendencies which I feel if I have, then I will become complete. Those manifest as desires, thoughts, actions, results. When I am not identified with the body, mind, intellect, whether it is in a state of absorption in work, or in a state of pure love, or in a state of deep sleep, or in the state of samadhi, to the extent I don't have the identification with the BMI, to that extent I don't feel incomplete. I feel at peace. There is no Vasana, pressure, no desire, no thoughts, no actions. And hence, false identification with the BMI is the cause of bondage. Now, why am I identifying with the BMI? Because I don't know who am I. Ignorance of my true nature is the root cause of bondage. From ignorance comes false identification, incompleteness, and the rest of the cycle. Now, majority of us will not even know this till we come to Vedanta. Even when we come to Vedanta, the root cause of bondage is not understood properly. One only is trying to make one's life better by adjusting, making some changes in the personality level externally. In the sense, try to accept life as it comes. So prasada buddhi with the result. Try to be more friendly and work together in a cooperative spirit with people. So that is yajna bhavana. Try to do some japa, do some seva. So reduce the selfish thoughts, make it more selfless. So most of the time Vedanta is used only for this, which makes my life more harmonious, which makes me feel more better. Really a seeker is one who wants to identify, who feels that ignorance is the cause of my bondage. I don't know who am I. That is what is leading to false identification, and then the attachments, and then the entire cycle is happening. So I want to eliminate that cause. To eliminate that cause, the mind has to be subtle and pure. Hence, those earlier practices are very important. So when we study the scriptures and we share the knowledge, Vadantu Shastrani, when we worship the deities, Yajantu Devan, Kurvantu Karmani, when we serve the society, when we do our duties, when we do our actions, we do rituals, Bhajantu Devataha, rituals, prayers, these are all preparatory means to reduce the Vasana pressure. And Vasana pressure is of two types. One is the qualitative pressure and one is the quantitative pressure. So the qualitative pressure of Vasana is, the more the Rajasic and Tamasic Vasanas I have, the more extroverted the mind is. The more the Sattvic Vasanas I have, more quieter the mind is, more introvert, more ability is there in that mind to focus on self-enquiry, study of the scriptures, the preparatory means. And that Sattvic Vasanas are what bring the person to satsang, make them follow steadily the whole spiritual path, which is what was said earlier as Viprata, Sattvic qualities. So one is to reduce the Vasana pressure qualitatively, that transform the Vasanas which are Rajasic and Tamasic into Sattvic Vasanas. So all these are the means: Bhakti, Puja, Upvas, Dan, Yajna, so many methods are there. Self-control, all these are methods to reduce the Rajasic and Tamasic Vasanas and increase the Sattvic Vasana. Then comes the quantitative pressure. The more the quantity of the Vasanas, the more the disturbance in the desires, mind, the thoughts in the mind and actions. Every Vasana gives rise to some desires or the other. One Vasana can give rise to many desires also. And every desire is a disturbance. As we said, it's a scheme for happiness in future. So it starts off a chain of thoughts. It makes a person restless. So the spiritual practices, the preparatory means, is to reduce the Vasana pressure and to make the mind more available. Not that it is carried away by desires, then it is not available for deeper inquiry into the cause and then eliminate the cause. So a large part of our spiritual life goes in doing the preparation. So reduce the quantity of vasanas, improve the quality of vasanas, so that the mind and intellect is not pressurized by these vasanas. Such a mind and intellect can inquire and even experience that yes, incompleteness, false identification and ignorance is the cause of my sorrow. And that ignorance is the root cause. It will not remain at intellectual level. One will feel the shackles. One will feel that yes, I must know who am I. As of now, I don't know who am I. And that is the cause of my sorrow. So when a person comes to that understanding, yes, ignorance is the root cause, then the knowledge of the self, Atmaikya Bodha, will free that person. Why? Because opposite of ignorance is knowledge. And only knowledge will remove this ignorance. No amount of action will remove the ignorance. Because action is not opposite of knowledge, ignorance. So how strange it is that whole life I keep doing action and I don't even know how to do this action. Because not knowing how to act, I am strengthening my tendencies, my vasanas, which is creating more desires, more thoughts, more actions. And now not every desire is going to be fulfilled in this life. So then I keep taking bodies after bodies. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. So this cycle of birth and death actually is an expression of this cycle. This is the karmic cycle. Tendencies, desires, thoughts, action, result is the karmic cycle. And this karmic cycle is fed by the ignorance cycle, which is the top three. So 3 cycles. Ignorance cycle leads to karmic cycle, leads to the birth and death cycle. This is called samsara, full. And hence he says here that Atmaikya Bodhena Vina Vimukti. Without this knowledge of the self, mukti will not happen. By mukti here we mean the absolute freedom. Not freedom from agitations or freedom from conflicts and the mind is little more peaceful, not that. So the entire spiritual life is to do this preparation, to make the mind ready, to identify the root cause of bondage in my own personality, and then to get the Brahma Vidya. What will I do? With such a quietened mind where the Vasana pressure is reduced, qualitatively and quantitatively one has managed it well. There is a deep thirst to know who am I. So one goes to the teacher, seeks the knowledge of the self. Sometimes one goes to the teacher even to understand what is bondage. Like you will see here in this Vivek Chudamani, 7 questions he asks about bondage and liberation. Konama bandha kathamesha agata. What is this bondage? From where has it come? How does it sustain? The disciple wants to know. Because with one's own thinking and inquiry, one can do up till a certain point. So all of us come to the point till desires, attachment. But after that, we require the input of scriptures or we require input of a guru or both. And so one goes to the teacher, understands, and then listen, reflect, contemplate. That's the direct means of mukti. Because listening, reflecting, contemplation and samadhi will give this Atmaikya Bodha. The intuitive understanding that my nature is Brahman. And I am not this body. This is only an equipment. My nature is pure consciousness, existence, consciousness and bliss. That's the Atma, which is a self in me. And that is the very cause of this whole universe, the substratum of the whole universe. And that is Brahma. this self in me is the self in all. That is called Atma Ikya Bodha. Till this doesn't arise, there is no freedom. From the cycle of birth and death, one keeps going. Why? Because the root cause, the ignorance cycle, has not got destroyed. So the karmic cycle goes on, the birth and death cycle goes on. So mukti, if somebody says, is freedom from birth and death, by implication it means it is actually freedom from ignorance. And the beauty is this: birth and death is not a problem, nor karma is a problem. Why? Because if I am born with the knowledge of who I am, there is no problem at all. Problem is not birth. Problem is not knowing who am I and then being confused that I am this body. That's the problem. Hence, in Vedanta, we never say that freedom from cycle of birth and death is mukti. That is very basic understanding. The implication of that line is, please free me from ignorance. I must free myself from ignorance that I am this body and I don't know who am I. That ignorance I have to free myself. That will happen through Atma Ikya Bodha. So the devotee asks the Lord that, oh Lord, I don't mind being born as a stone on the banks of Yamuna. I don't mind being born as a Kadamba tree. I don't mind being born even as a creature in the Yamuna, or as a cow, or as any plant in the Vrindavan. All I request you is, please ensure that I don't forget you. Constant remembrance of yours must be there in my mind. So that's the language of devotion, where I constantly remember my oneness with the Lord. Here is the language of knowledge. Atma Ikya Bodha. Constantly, if I know that my nature is pure consciousness, then birth and death is not a problem. Karma also is not a problem, because karma will no more bind me. Because I anchor myself in a higher truth, and the BMI is doing the action. Hence, this shloka is to make us understand the root cause of sorrow, and then to identify it and understand the place of all the sadhanas that I do. So preparatory means and the direct means. Just like we have the secondary cause of bondage and the primary or the root cause of bondage. So the preparatory means is to remove the secondary cause and make me ready to identify the primary cause. And the direct means is to remove that primary cause. So the preparatory means Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga, they are the methods of reducing the quantity of vasanas, improving the quality of vasanas, integrating the body, mind and intellect. Such a person is called Yukta Purusha. Once that person has done that, then identify the root cause of bondage, go to the teacher, listen, reflect and contemplate. Listening, reflection and contemplation is the direct means of liberation. So we should remember preparatory means and direct means. For a Vedantic student, listen, reflect and contemplate. That's the direct means. For a Bhakta, the same knowledge that is attained through listening, reflecting and contemplating, Bhagwan blesses that person with that intuitive knowledge, who has cultivated Ananya Bhakti, single pointed devotion. To that person, Bhagwan blesses that person with that intuitive knowledge of the self. Atma Ikya Bodha. In the 10th chapter, Bhagwan gives that promise. He says, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mam Upayantite. In the Gita, he says that I bless them with that spiritual vision of the self, by which they will experience oneness with me. So either ways, Atmaikya Bodhena Vina Vimukti. Even the person who is doing Karma Yoga attains the same state. So Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, when I follow As a preparatory means, it will help me to remove my, reduce my vasana pressure, improve the quality. And then through the direct means, Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan, or the blessing of the Lord, the Atmaikya Bodha will arise and the person is free. So this is the shloka. In this cycle, is there any doubts? You are welcome to ask.
Swamiji, Hari Om.
Yes.
So many times, after doing so many years of sadhana and all, certain habits or certain tendencies of the vasta force vex you in such a way that all your sadhana what you done, you feel that you are not still able to reach to that level like of sattvic mode probably.
One has to keep putting the effort, because see, we don't know what is the vasana bundle that we have, how deep it is, how strong it is. We don't know. There's only choice is when these vasanas are manifesting as desires, at that level, how much we are able to put our efforts to control the mind, the desires, the emotions. That hard work we have to do. If it is an undesirable vasana manifesting, one has to put that hard work to stop it from expressing or to sublimate it. That is one's own purushartha.
Swamiji, I had a question.
Yes.
What is the difference between control, as you said it, and suppression?
So suppression is without logic, without giving the mind a proper reasoning. Control is when I know that why this has to be done and I'm controlling it. So for example, if anger arises in my mind, if I suppress it, it is just done through willpower, saying, I just should not get angry, full stop. No, but this situation is demanding anger. My mind keeps justifying, but I just say, no, I should not get angry. Just shut up. Don't be angry. Over. That is suppressing it. Controlling it would be, I know that I can get angry, but I also know that anger is going to create more disturbance in my mind. It is going to worsen the situation. And in this situation, it will not be good for me to reach my goal. So though I feel tremendously angry inside the mind, I control my speech, I control my actions. And after some time, I'm able to even let go of the insistence in my mind, which causes that anger. So there I have controlled the expression because I am understanding the higher purpose. I'm understanding the harmful effect of anger. I don't want it to destroy certain things that I value. And with effort, I'm controlling it.
Swamiji, I have a question.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah. So now I've understood that what I'm trying to do is just using Vedanta to make my life more harmonious. That is happening. But now I didn't even know this is not the end. I thought today I came to know that this is not it. So now how do I go further from here? Because I feel that I'm succeeding, I'm sublimating. I'm not trying to suppress whatever is happening in my life to be harmonious and happy in life. But now what? Then now I just realized today when you said that this is just what is we are doing to make it harmonious, but that is not what the problem is. The problem is I don't know who I am.
Yeah, so making the life harmonious, sublimating, they are no doubt the preparatory steps. One should continue the preparatory steps and the mind will become purified.
Okay.
And through that, the awareness of
Mm.
bondage will be more deeper and then the solution will also happen. At the moment, intellectually, at least I am aware today.
Mm.
So then my effort will now
Yeah.
change, that it will not be limited to only just making a few changes in my life to just make it harmonious. So the vision has to become deeper.
Okay.
The emotion will have
Mm.
more depth, and then the action will manifest it. So it is a question of knowledge, aligning the mind, and then action.
Mm.
It takes time. So keep keep going on this journey. Just the wrong notion which was there,
Okay.
this is the final thing, that has got removed.
Mm.
So it's like a barrier which has got removed from the way. Now the goal is clearer. Earlier I thought this barrier, this itself is a goal.
Ah,
Particular stage is the goal. Now I know, okay, goal is far away. So then I have to keep,
yeah.
and this whole Vivek Chudamani
Oh,
is for this only, no?
yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Swami.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Yes, Hariom.
Yeah, you said ignorance of the self leads to vasanas. So, a spiritual vasana is also as a result of ignorance. So, how does that work then?
It's a sattvic vasana, that's all.
Yeah, but ultimately, I am guessing that you have to remove even that.
Of course, the desire for liberation also is a desire, but it is the last desire. The spiritual
And
vasana
that,
is a
so
vasana.
that goes on its own.
Yeah, it will go. It will
Okay,
go on.
thank you.
The last desire goes on its own. Like the desire to sleep will go on its own when I'm actually sucked into sleep. But till that desire is maintained, then only I can withdraw the mind from everything else. Otherwise, I can't withdraw. I have to maintain that desire strongly
Okay,
to reduce all
okay, thank you.
that this goes.
Yeah, thank you.
Swamiji,
Yes,
question here.
I can hear.
Swamiji, now when we are talking about, hello, sorry,
I can hear.
Swamiji, when we talk about desires, so my understanding from today is that when I am looking at an incompleteness today and plan for future happiness, that is what is causing a desire and then the whole cycle, right? But I mean, how do I differentiate this from the fact that yes, I have everything, I am happy today, but then I still have a certain desire for future to make it a happier future for myself or family. So the whole materialistic goals. So that is kind of creating confusion for me when I look at it with the cycle. Is this something that I should not have, or how can I align it with the bigger picture of my own liberation? I don't know if my question even makes sense.
Of course, it makes sense. It's a natural doubt that anybody will have because we generally think that this is the way to become happy. So through desires, my life will become more happier in future. So a general understanding of that is fine, but what I have to understand is two things. Happiness does not come by fulfillment of desires. Happiness comes from a quiet mind, number one. Which does not mean that I will not plan for future, I will not execute certain plans, I will not, have certain, maybe I want a house or I want, or I want to eat this, I want to do that. One can do whatever one wants to, but remember one thing, happiness is not coming from that, pleasure is coming from that, number one. Number two, the way in which I will do it, whether it is to strengthen my ego or to reduce my ego, that is also another aspect. I can use work, I can use plans, I can use my creativity, make a huge plan for my life and say this by this age I want to achieve. Is it for myself alone or is it for society also? Am I audible?
Yes. Hari Om Swamiji.
Yeah, I had the connection had gone right now. So I was saying that
Yeah.
desire by itself not a problem. My dependence on that for happiness, that is a problem. First point. Second, when I plan certain things, that plans can be made and executed with the attitude that it makes my mind more integrated, makes my potential manifest. So the existing tendencies I'm manifesting. But when I do it selflessly, then the existing tendencies are getting exhausted and no new tendencies are getting created. So the attitude with which I execute those plans is very important. It cannot be only for I. Suppose I say it is for me and my family. So then one has expanded from the small I to the family, which is a good thing, where the family's happiness comes before me. Then expand it for the society, then slowly for the country, and expand it that way. So if I'm able to do that, then the attitude of selflessness is what helps me to ensure that no new tendencies are created and existing ones are exhausted. So this is the attitude with which I work.
Hariom,
There is there's nothing wrong in having a desire, planning for future. It is not conflicting. As long as these two things I'm clear about. One is happiness comes from my mind, which is at peace. And of course, happiness is the absolute happiness when I transcend the mind. But at this level right now, let it be a peaceful mind and a mind which is selfless. The second aspect is how I execute it is through selflessness, through dedicating it to a higher purpose. Then the desire will be used as a means to exhaust the existing vasanas and not create any new ones. And slowly the ego becomes lesser and lesser, which means I must have more love for something higher, whether it is my goal, whether it is my family, whether it is my country. At the altar of love, the ego surrenders, and that is where we execute the plans but are not bound by them.
Hariom
Thank you.
Swamiji. Hariom.
Hari Om.
Hariom Swamiji, can you please advise something about the sadhana? Because intellectually we know about this, that we are not the body, mind and intellect. But about the sadhana, I just want to know.
So the sadhanas are given already here, that study the scriptures, meditate on the Lord, do seva of the society around. So many sadhanas are there in spiritual life. One can study those specific books also, like Sadhana Panchakam, Bhaja Govindam. When you study those books, the more details about sadhana are also given in that. And one can continue one's spiritual life through those practices. Here right now, the vision is not to tell us about sadhana more. This is to get the proper clarity. This is a Prakarana Grantha. It will also speak about some sadhanas and all that will come. But this is not a book for understanding how to do sadhana in terms of preparatory. How to do sadhana will happen through the other books. One has to study those books. Here is the intellectual vision has to come first. The clarity has to come first, that why am I doing sadhana? What is the objective of the sadhana? How the preparatory means is there, and then there's a direct means. Those things, when I don't know, my sadhana also becomes mechanical. Or my sadhana has a limitation because I don't see, I see the means as the goal.
Yes.
So this book will elaborate more on the vision part, and
Okay.
do that jnana sadhana, and one will do the preparation also, but more details you have to see in another book.
Okay. Thank you, Swamiji.
See, this cycle is very important to understand. All the three cycles which we spoke about: ignorance, karma, and birth and death. If I understand this thoroughly, the entire Vivek Chudamani will become easy for me to understand, because then I know this sequence. Ignorance leads to false identification, leads to incompleteness, leads to tendencies, which further creates desires, thoughts, action, result, and further strengthens the tendencies. Now there should not be any doubts in this at all, because a lot of clarity of Vedanta depends on this. Right from ignorance onwards till this birth and death cycle, I should know the connection. What leads to what affects what, So I suggest spend some more time on that and become very, very clear. So one more verse, 7th verse, he says, Amritatvasya na shasti vitte neteva hi shrutihi braviti karmano muktehe ahetutvam sfutam yataha. So here there's a quotation from the scripture, Amritatvasya na asha asti vittena. Through wealth, one will not attain immortality. Now, wealth is a symbolic representation here, that through anything external, one will not get mukti. This is said, this is from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Karmanoho muktehe ahetutvam sfutam yataha. And it is also through karma that one will not get mukti. So no amount of action will lead to liberation, no amount of wealth will lead to liberation. What does this mean? Generally we chant even in the Purna Kumbha when somebody is holding the Purna Kumbha and a sannyasi is received, then we chant this mantra, na karmana na prajaya dhane na tyage naike amritatvama nashuhu. So we don't get immortality through karma, na karmana, na prajaya, not through progeny, not through wealth. But how will we get this? Tyage naike, only by renunciation. Amritatva manashuhu. Amritatva or immortality is experienced. So the supreme happiness, permanent happiness, absolute bliss is not a product of any amount of actions, because whatever we create through action will be time bound. It will have a limited result, and in time that result will get over. And as we saw earlier, our root cause of sorrow is ignorance. Action cannot remove ignorance. Only knowledge can remove ignorance. So, entire life of ours, if you think about it, how much action we keep on doing. There's no problem with action by itself. But not knowing the root cause of my sorrow, when I think that if I get that, I will become more happy. If I get this, I become more happy. If I go there, I will become more happy. No doubt it will lead to more happiness in terms of pleasure of the mind, not the permanent happiness that we seek. And hence a person spends the entire life in just running behind action and results. So here he says, ahetutvam sfutam yatha. Hetu means cause. Ahetu means no cause. So action is not the cause of removal of ignorance. That is very clear. If there is a wrong notion in my head, any amount of action outside is not going to remove the wrong notion. That has to be replaced by the right thought. Because the problem is at thought level. So if I think that smoking gives happiness, no amount of action outside is going to remove that wrong thought in my mind. I may work hard, I can serve the society, I can do anything. But the wrong thought is here. That has to be replaced. That smoking kills. For killing, for that wrong thought to be replaced by the right thought, whatever action is required, that is a preparatory means. And that has to be done. So I open a book, read about it, go on the net, understand that, you know, this smoking creates this problem. So many people have gone through it and it's very dangerous. Now that action becomes a preparatory means to gain the knowledge which will remove the wrong notion. So na karmana, no amount of action by itself will lead me to knowledge. But the right attitude, action when it is done, and the action which is done to gain the right knowledge, both these, they can be preparatory means. Meaning action as my duties, responsibilities, work done with the right attitude, and then the right action to remove knowledge, which is listening, reflecting, contemplating. The efforts done for that. This will help to remove the sorrow once and for all. So merely by doing actions, by working hard in the world, one will not get this state of pure bliss. Na karmana, na prajaya. We all want to be immortal. We all want to live forever because immortality is our true nature and we have forgotten it. So now we want to be immortal through work, through achievement, through name, fame, or through progeny, that I live in this world through my children. That is another delusion. Children are jivas who are independent. They have come with their own karma. I cannot enforce anything on them. They have their own destiny to play. And that will happen through that karmas of their own life. I am here only to be a facilitator, to exhaust some karma that I have with them. So na karmana, na prajaya, na dhanena. No amount of wealth will make me immortal. Because wealth after all is a means to gain some comfort, to feel little more financially secure. And it remains here only. Even if I take birth after birth, because of my punya karma, whatever I have to get, that I will get as a blessing. But it is not going to remove the sorrow, which is ignorance based. It can remove the functional need or the functional dependency on food, shelter, clothing, some comforts. That's all. Beyond that, it can do nothing more. But our whole life is consumed by these three: by work, by running behind things which are external, and by insisting upon the children and the other people to be the way I want them to be. None of this will lead to immortality. The scripture says that very clearly. What will lead to immortality is if I use these three in the attitude of seva, prepare my mind, gain the knowledge, remove the ignorance. Not knowing all these is a misery. So this particular section is to tell us about that. That what is the misery of a person who doesn't know the root cause of bondage and is using the preparatory means, not even to prepare the mind, but is using the preparatory means to get more bound. When I don't know the right attitude towards work, towards progeny, towards wealth, instead of using these to prepare my mind and get liberation, I'm using these to strengthen my bondage. That's the misery. Hence, the right attitude is so important. So for today, we will stop here. Tomorrow, we will take up the next section, which is the means of wisdom. And now that I understand, okay, this is the root cause of my sorrow, what is the means of wisdom and how to gain the knowledge? That will take up tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.